Good evening, everyone. Thank you for that warm welcome to the stage, Veronica. And my grandmother, my late grandmother, and my mom are on my mind. So I just want to start by saying happy belated Mother's Day to all those in the room who are mothers or mother figures. Yes, that deserves a round of applause. I sometimes have to pinch myself as I inch close to 30 years of age to think about all the experiences I've had to date. I'm incredibly blessed and grateful to the American Constitution Society for continuing to elevate my voice and serve as an authentic partner in promoting the vitality of the U.S. Constitution and the fundamental values it expresses. Today, it is with great humility and gratitude that I introduce tonight's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Born in Baltimore, Maryland, and raised in Queens, New York, she is the daughter of Myrtle and Lester, who is an electrician and social worker. Ms. Ifill is the former president and Director-Counsel of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Legal Defense Fund. She is currently a senior fellow at the Ford Foundation focused on social justice and strengthening American democracy. A graduate of Vassar College and the New York University School of Law, the opportunity to serve is not unusual for Ms. Ifill. Because of her parents, she developed an early interest in becoming a civil rights attorney. To quote Ms. Ifill directly, "I wanted to be somebody who makes a difference. You have. I wanted to be powerful. You are. I wanted to exude a certain kind of power that comes from being truthful. You do. As someone that has looked up to you as a big sister in the movement for liberation and justice, I think your impeccable career speaks directly to that. So without further ado, it is my honor to present the American Constitution Society's 2023 Lifetime Achievement Award to someone who I greatly admire, Ms. Sherrilyn Ifill. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. This means a great deal to me, and I know it's late. But can I say something for just a minute? I just want to hold you. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much, ACS, for this honor. I also recognize that when people start giving you Lifetime Achievement Awards, it's their way of saying that you're old. I like to think of myself as seasoned. But I want to talk to you because, as Justin has already suggested, this is a room of friends. This is a room, and it's not the only room, but it's a representative room of the people who, if this democracy is going to be saved, are going to play a powerful role in saving it. And I want to talk to you because I think it's critical that in the room, we are able to properly diagnose the moment that we're in, how we ended up here, reflect on our own complicity in how we ended up here, and decide that we are going to go another way. So the first thing I want to do is start with something hopeful, which is one of the great things about having been in this work for a long time, is that you get to see the arc of the work, and you know that by and large, regardless of how it looks, we have been incredibly successful. Now, it may not feel that way, especially to people who haven't seen the arc, but you know, Justin, I taught one of the first environmental justice clinics in the country at law school. The second clinic I taught was the second clinic in the country to address barriers facing formerly incarcerated people, Oren. And right before I left law teaching to join LDF, the last clinic I started was a reparations clinic. Each of these things seemed crazy at the time that I was doing them. And yet those conversations are now at the center of the table. And I think we have to recognize that the moment that we're in is a perilous one. It's one we've been driven to, however, not because of what we have not done, but because our opponents are responding to what we've done. The effort to stop children from reading books about the struggles of race or LGBTQ people or women or poor people or immigrants is not because they were winning. It's because we had moved those conversations to the center of our families' lives, because those books were in every library, because teachers were teaching this. And their response is the backlash. And the reason I worry about this is because if we don't properly diagnose the problem and recognize that they are responding to us, we will stop doing the things that we do that are successful. Voter suppression bills. Why is there a voter suppression bill that says you can't give refreshments to people standing online to vote? That is because Black voters stood online for 9 hours in Fulton County, Georgia. It's a response to what we have done. Now, I don't mean to suggest that doing what we did in the past is all we have to do. But what I am suggesting is let's make sure we don't drop too much luggage on the path towards what we have to do to face this moment. We have to keep voting. We have to keep advocating and keeping our arms linked with the immigrant community, the LGBTQ community. We have to stand up for teachers. We have to stand up for librarians. Those are our people. Those are our people. But I want to speak to this room with great respect to all of the organizers and politicians who may be here. I want to talk to the lawyers for a minute. Because, as has already been suggested by Orrin, we bear a special responsibility from the system from which we earn our living, from which we earn our prestige, from which we earn our paychecks. And we are rightfully complicit in a system that regularly churns out injustice. We are complicit in a system that, in Baltimore, will prosecute someone who is alleged to be a gang leader for witness tampering or obstruction of justice. But when political figures at the highest level of government send messages saying, you know he reads the transcripts, we all pretend we don't understand what that means. We have to take hold of this system to which we have pledged our lives. We took an oath, and at least for me, oaths matter. And this system is not worthy at this moment of the oaths that we have taken. The chickens have come home to roost, and some of the most nefarious people are taking advantage of the gaps that were already in our system. Trump didn't create an unequal legal system in this country. Bill Barr didn't create an unequal legal system in this country. No, that existed already. And while many of us have been fighting it as a profession, we have to demand that our profession stand up and speak with one voice. In my purse is my pocket constitution. It doesn't have a cover on it anymore. It's very worn. And sometimes I'm embarrassed that, I switch it from one purse to the other. Like, why are you still carrying this? I started carrying it in 1997, the first time I went to South Africa while they were in the Truth and Reconciliation process, and everyone had a pocket constitution. And I thought, that is incredibly cool. And I started carrying it. And then I couldn't let it go, mostly because I wanted to be able to quickly counter in arguments with folks that I might engage with. But I'm constantly asking myself why I'm carrying it. And I will share with you that I'm carrying it now because, again, the Constitution is unfinished business for us as lawyers. If we are honest with ourselves, we have not used what Tom Sayens calls the whole Constitution. We have allowed ourselves to be mesmerized by the terms of the debate and the contest set by those on the conservative side. We run down rabbit holes that they create, and we attach legitimacy to ideas that they simply created so that they could gain power. But we meet it like it's real, and we try to really figure it out and make those, I've done it, and make arguments that we think will appeal to that particular idea. We've done it with judicial confirmations, with balls and strikes and stripping down like a runner and all of this foolishness. And it has allowed us to become distracted from what we needed to do. The result is we have wasted precious time, and we are now at the precipice. Here's the good news. For the first time in my professional life, I believe we are at the moment in this country when we have no choice but to create the America that I believe most of the people in this room have always wanted. It is not the one that existed in 2008 or 1997. I've been a civil rights lawyer for 30 years, never been out of work, so obviously it wasn't perfect. When we see people being released from jail after serving 30 years in prison for a crime they didn't commit, that's a sign it's been bad for a while. These prison conditions didn't just start. So this has been going on for a while, and now we've been herded to the point where we have no choice but to confront it and deal with it. And for me, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not excited about that. I'm not going to pretend that what I want is to return to 2010 and to glorify the systems that I've spent 30 years fighting against. This is our opportunity to create what we really want. And the good news for us is that we have examples in the past that America can be made and remade again. It happened during the Civil Rights Movement. It may not have been perfect, but I can tell you this room would not look like this room without it. You would probably not be living where you are living. And here I'm not just talking to the black people now. Were it not for the work of the Civil Rights Movement, were it not for the work in the courts of LDF and other civil rights organizations, you would not be married to who you're married to, perhaps. You would not have gone to the schools that you went to. Perhaps your children would not, and you would not have been able to get the jobs that you were able to get. Hell, we once did a study, you wouldn't be able to drink coffee in the airport coffee shop, some of you, us. So we understand that it can happen. And those people didn't know what the outcome was going to be either. They had no guarantees. They had no reason to believe that they would succeed in breaking the back of Jim Crow. And yet they stepped forward anyway, and they sacrificed and they strategized. And to Justin's point, when they had conflicts with the movement, you didn't hear about it publicly. They did what they had to do and got what they could get. And if we are inclined to criticize them at this moment for not getting the whole thing, just remember they got enough for you to be here. And so our job is to get enough for that next generation, to decide that we will not tolerate, we will not pass along a world in which girls and women don't have control of their bodies. We will not pass along a world in which citizens are not able to vote and participate in the process. We will not allow the prison walls to hide the most grotesque human rights abuses that are undertaken in our name. We will not allow ourselves to have a judiciary that lacks integrity and that allows the kind of excesses that we have seen. We will not allow 90% of people facing eviction to have no legal counsel. We will not allow all of the issues related to access to justice and affordable housing. We will not acquiesce to language that suggests that the answer to homelessness is vigilante murder on a subway. We will not keep our children from reading some of our most powerful, moving writers who reach down into their souls and into our experiences and into our ancestors to help us understand who we are and how we navigate in this world. But to do that, I don't hear you. And when I say you, I mean our profession. I see the excesses happen, but I don't see the immediate response from the institutions of our profession. And we have to make that happen. We're responsible. We are lawyers. We are in a profession. And that means that whether we like each other or not, we are all united in a system that by our very participation in it, we are suggesting is legitimate. If it's not legitimate, then we need to own up to it or speak out and work to change it. So for the people in this room, I want you to feel this moment is one that is precarious. I do not think it is a guarantee that we make it out of this a democracy. But I believe we will. But remember, if we do, as I told students at NYU Law School this morning, we have been, certainly for my whole lifetime and probably for the lifetime of every person in this room, an unhealthy democracy. Our goal has to be higher, bigger, more ambitious. Now we have the chance, because so many systems are unraveling, because people who thought they knew it all, who had all the op-eds and all the papers and were regarded as the experts, turned out to be wrong about our country. And my little old clients in Alabama and Mississippi, they were right. They were right. So now let's be courageous enough and honest enough to admit that we too, perhaps, listened to the wrong voices, that we too have bowed before so-called experts, and recognize that we are responsible now for not just returning ourselves to hanging on to democracy by our fingernails, but to creating a healthy, sound democracy of integrity that benefits all her people. That's the task before us. And if we're gonna do that, we're gonna have to do two things I know. We're gonna have to break some eggs, which means some things gonna have to go. I mean, you filibuster and all this stuff, they're gonna have to go. And I appreciate the fears about what the other side may do. That is no way to win a war. You wanna think tactically about what they may do, but that can't strangle you from being bold. So it's time for institutional reform, reform within our profession, Senate reform, House reform, executive branch reform. If we are to come out of this, it may be our one last chance in this modern era to create a new America. So we gotta break some eggs. The second thing we have to do, and my fellow progressive people, this is something we just wrestle with, we have to be unequivocal, unafraid, and unabashed about seeking power. Now, I understand this may be, a remnant. I grew up in the 70s and power, the man, and all that. But listen, you cannot cower to the people. You cannot make transformative change without power. And we have to start speaking in those terms within the democratic process. And I would say this to my partisan friends. Some of you here work within one of the political parties. I think there's actually only one political party at this point. The other one is doing something else. But working with, even within a party structure, that party has to speak about power. We have to speak as civil rights activists and lawyers about power. The Constitution is a document that identifies how to manage, obtain, and responsibly use power. And it includes within it a recognition of how to deal with abuses of power. And half the time, we're too frightened to use it. So for the next year, I'm entering a planning process to create a project on the 14th Amendment, which I believe is the one provision of the Constitution that most honestly and powerfully articulates the vision for this new country that was created after the Civil War. It includes provisions that I'm sure you know about, but that you very often don't talk about, and that many of our people don't talk about. The person with the AR-15 on their back buying a Big Mac will tell you that it is his Second Amendment right. But when was the last time you heard someone say their 14th Amendment rights were violated? I mean just a normal person in the McDonald's. We talk about bias and discrimination and bigotry. We don't ground it in our constitutional rights, and therefore it ends up in the conversation about feelings and whether you have a racist bone in your body and whether you see race, none of which is what it's about. It is about the framers of the Civil War amendments creating a reset in this country. That reset was derailed by white violence, by Congress's inaction for 70 years, and by the Supreme Court. But it's there in the amendment. And I'll be sharing more about that over the next 6 months. I know we need lots of new things, but we are leaving tools sitting right here that were created precisely for us. When those framers of the 14th Amendment said that those who participated in insurrection cannot serve in state or federal government, it's because these people knew. They knew these insurrectionists were crazy and weren't going to stop. And we know that provision exists, and yet we take no action. Even in so-called blue states, many of us had people who participated on January 6th. We don't use the power. We have power in the 14th Amendment to address the debt crisis, and we treat it like it's the nuclear option. It's constitutional. It's right there. It's right there. Now, I don't mean to pretend that, I don't recognize that the courts are a little iffy right now, and so we have to be very, very careful. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that I'm just looking for new legal strategies. I do think we have an opportunity to reset our national identity and the set of commitments around which we identify ourselves as a democracy. I want us to be that ambitious. I want us just not to win a case. I want us not to just elect someone to office. I want us to reimagine this country in the way that I think so many of us have wanted. And I honestly believe that if we are not that ambitious, if we are not prepared to do a full reset, we will be back here. Even if we make it out of this period as a limping democracy, we will be back here in 10 years. If we really want to make change, and many of us in this room have been around long enough to know that we haven't made the kind of transformative change we want to, this is the time. And for that reason, even though I'm as exhausted as you are and I'm angry and pissed off, I'm excited. I am excited about this moment when we have the opportunity to become founders of a new America. So thank you all very much.